hear you're ready for your dose of reality. What's up, everybody? Welcome to another episode of the Dr. Quack Podcast. I'm your host, Dr. Quack. That I did.
And I'm the important one, Mr. Mayhem. And obviously we had to make some changes here. It had nothing to do with any kind of social disease or anything like that. He just decided he was going to change it up for a while. He wanted to pay a tribute to the phone book of China, so
I'll tell you, feeling the love here, folks. Yes, today's episode, we are continuing our coverage on the AWA, and we are covering Superclash.
That's right, Superclash 1. And the reason we're wearing Randomania shirts, one, we always give love to our number one fan, a great friend of ours, a great friend of the Dr. Quack podcast, Randy Hogan. But AWA Superclash, what they did is they brought together the NWA, the AWA, they brought World Class in here and a couple of other companies, all trying to compete against Vince McMahon. So if they can cross-promote, so can we.
Yes, if that doesn't sound familiar with today's wrestling, I don't know what will. But
this show, as we get into it, is a prime example of if you don't study your history, you're doomed to repeat it.
Yeah. And let's start off here, because this happened at Comiskey Park in Chicago, Illinois.
That's right, the home of the White Sox at the time. I think they've moved to a different park now, but this is where they played in 1985.
That's right. We had Larry Nelson not only on commentary, but he was also the interview man, and he was also the reason why I almost hung myself watching this whole show. We'll get into that.
Yeah, we'll start right off the top. He really had a 50s style of commentary during the matches when he used to yell insults at the heel wrestlers, but nobody could hear it except the television people, so it really was bad. And then when he interviewed, he had the bad Tony Schiavone version of he yelled really loud into a microphone that was not set up for the acoustics for Comiskey Park. So there were a lot of times you couldn't understand what people were saying.
Yeah, give me Mr. Trongard any day in comparison. We watched Super Sunday before this, and man, such a big difference in that. We had Jack Brickhouse and Mark LaFrance on there.
That's right. Mark Lawrence came over from World Class to do the ring announcing for this one. Jack Brickhouse did one match. He was the voice of the White Sox in the 40s, 50s, and 60s on their radio, the White Sox radio. So it was kind of a callback to Comiskey Park. He also is a wrestling fan, and he talked about knowing Vern Gagne. Well, that is actually true. He did know Vern Gagne in real life.
Yes. Remember, folks, this pay-per-view took place after WrestleMania 1. This also took place before Starrcade 85.
That's right.
Bronco Nelson was one of the referees there. Let's get into the first match here.
Bronco Lubitsch. I know you got Larry Nelson on the
No, I'm telling you, that guy Nelson, he's all over. But Steve Regal against Brad Riggins for the AWA Light Heavyweight title.
Yeah, this is Mr. Electricity Steve Regal, a.k.a. Skinny Mini. He and Greg Gagne were fighting for the least impressive body in the wrestling world, taking on Brad Riggins, who we talked about on Super Sunday, a former Greco-Roman wrestler who was part of the Olympic team for the Greco-Roman wrestling. And this match wasn't bad for an opening match. They had a little bit of Jimmy Garvin coming down to distract the referee that caused the reversal and the pulling of the tights. It was a nice old school starting, as you say, setting of the table match, I did give it 2 stars.
Yeah, I gave it 2 stars as well. I mean, I liked it the first time I seen it on Super Sunday. I liked it this time. It was very classic wrestling there.
That's right, and they had a nice little what they call a face revenge at the end, where after the match is over and the heel is celebrating, Brad Reagan's attacked Steve Regal, and then later on, as they're bringing out the second match, they cut to the camera, and Steve Regal got body slammed on by the first base out there on the ground. So it was a nice little revenge at the end to keep the crowd going.
That's right. Match number 2 here. We had Sherry Martel taking on Candy Devine for the AWA Women's title.
Yeah, this match was a really, really good paced match. I wish more women's matches followed this formula than what they do today. There's a lot of garbage today. This was very well paced. This was not a stunt show. This was a wrestling match. It was a good match. A little sloppy. Unfortunately, the splash off the top rope was really bad. It made the whole match come down a little bit. I was going to give it 3 stars, but that splash was just so bad I had to go with 2 3/4.
Yeah, I went 2.5. I felt like it was a solid match because it actually had women fighting. It didn't have a spot fest. It didn't look like the stuff from today. It looked like a real fight.
That's right. And Sherry Martel won the AWA Women's title, and that was her first reign here.
Yeah, and definitely, she deserved that. Moving along here, Jumbo Saruta, Giant Baba, and Generico Tenru taking on Harley Race, Bill Irwin, and Scott Irwin for the AWA Asian 6-man tag titles.
For those of you that are following, that understand Japanese language, understand Dr. Quack does not. It's not Generico, it's Genrico.
Genrico, close enough.
Yeah, I don't think he would say so.
Oh, I know.
All right, so this was Harley Race and the Long Riders, who were Wild Bill Irwin, who was known later as the Goon, amongst other god-awful things he's done, and his brother Scott Hogg Irwin, who passed away about 8 months later of a brain aneurysm. So this was one of the last big shows for Scott Hogg Irwin, taking on Shohei Baba, or the Giant Baba, who is a 3-time NWA World Champ.
Yes.
Harley Race an 8-time. At this time, it was 7-time. Genrico Tenru, who's a former World Champion from Ric Flair, and Jumbo Saruta, a former AWA World Champion. So there's a lot of star power in this match. The problem was it was only okay. A little sloppy. I don't think there was a lot of chemistry here. I think the Baba and Harley had some chemistry. Bill Irwin had a little chemistry with Jumbo Saruta, but they didn't have chemistry together. It really just kind of felt like 3 singles matches happening at the same time.
Yeah, I mean, it was solid. I gave it 2.5. It was a nice continuance of setting the table. Yeah. It could have been better. It could have been worse, but, it was nice to have them on the card.
I went 2 1/4. They built this as the Asian 6-man championship that the Baba and his team held on to. This title doesn't exist. It's never mentioned again after this pay-per-view. It was one of those Rio de Janeiro Battle Royal titles.
Yes, and moving along here, we had Little Tokyo taking on Little T for the NWA Midgets Championship.
That's right. The NWA Midget title is a real title. It was actually defended in the National Wrestling Alliance. The problem was it has one of the worst tracking records of all time. This title came around in 1946, actually before the NWA, and its last defense was in 2009. But there's like 40 years that nobody knows who the champions are. So right now we have Little Tokyo taking on Little Mr. T. For midget matches in the 80s, they were usually a little more comedy. This one really, it was the right length, but there wasn't enough comedy in here, so it felt like it was almost too long. The match was decent. I did go 2 1/4 stars. It was decent. It was just with the lack of comedy known for the midgets in the 80s, it was a little long.
Yeah, I mean, I gave it 2 stars. I wasn't really impressed with it. Not like the other midget wrestling I have seen throughout the years. I mean, I'm sorry, you had Lord Littlebrook, the Haiti Kid. You know, you had
Little Beaver
out there. You had many of those guys that fit the mold, and these two guys just didn't seem to do that.
Right. That's not to discredit that midget wrestling isn't something that should be watched and appreciated, because they weren't always comedy spots, but they usually had a little bit more to keep it going, because the guys were a little smaller and the moves didn't look as impressive. Just the nature of the beast, unfortunately. So they would do other little things, and this one was lacking some of those things.
Yes. Moving along here, Mil Mascaras taking on Buddy Roberts.
Yeah, the other member of the Freebirds, the one that seems to be the most forgotten, who was the best worker of the three, by the way, taking on Mil Mascaras. Now, the cover on the front said this was for the IWA Heavyweight Championship. The problem is the IWA, which was part of the National Wrestling Federation, which that doesn't exist anymore either. The IWA went out of business in 1978. Again, this took place in 1985. So Larry Nelson figured that out halfway through the show and started saying it was the Mexican heavyweight title. Except Mil Mascaras wasn't the Mexican heavyweight champion at the time. It was Dos Santos. So, but the match was Mil Mascaras.
You know what it was? It was Reasons.
Yes. Well, give it up. Give it up. We have the best example of this show right here.
Reasons. Yes.
Mil Mascaras this was a very Mil Mascaras controlled match. He didn't like to take a lot of abuse. He always liked to be on offense. It's well documented that he was hard to work with. If you wanted to get anything more than about 2 moves and make him look bad, he didn't want to work with you, and he would sandbag. And this was a typical of that. 2.25 stars. Mil Mascaras is not horrible by any stretch of the imagination. I'm not saying his work is horrible. I'm just saying he's horrible.
Yeah, I mean, I went 2.5. It was a little bit better than the rest, but not by much. It had a little better star power, a little more moves in it. But, to me, it just didn't really, it didn't excite me.
Yeah, Buddy Roberts was known to be easy to work with and would work with anybody as long as he got paid. So I think that's why this match existed.
I am going to move on to my Quack Attack. Because this match here, Kerry Von Erich taking on Jimmy Garvin with Precious for the World Class Championship Wrestling title right there, the Texas Championship. That match there, that was really classic to watch. I love the chemistry that Precious had with Kerry Von Erich. I love the match itself. I thought it was one of the better matches on the card that wasn't booked high. I'm definitely going 3 stars on this match.
I only went 2 3/4, but I'm gonna bump it up to 3 with you. Kerry Von Erich came out there, and they really did a good job of putting over the world-class style of wrestling, which was far different than what the AWA and NWA brought at that time. They were the independent version of the World Wrestling Federation as far as the excitement that they brought, the action that they brought. They weren't always the most talented, but they definitely gave the crowd what they wanted to see. And this was a prime example of that. They also put over that Mike Von Erich, he had just recovered. He had gotten sick in Israel from a staph infection in his shoulder, and he was in the hospital. So this was about the time that started the decline of the Von Erich legacy, was right around this time. But this was a great match. Jimmy Garvin, who I didn't like as a Freebird, but when Jimmy Garvin was by himself, when he feuded with David Von Erich, when he feuded with Kerry Von Erich, even his feuds with Kevin Von Erich, Jimmy Garvin could go. He got in the Freebirds, all of a sudden thought he was a rock and roll star, and it just, I never liked it. I understood why he was there. Still doesn't mean I liked it. So I'm going to go 3 stars with you. Kerry Von Erich did retain the Texas title.
Yeah, I mean, definitely one of my favorite matches on this card. There were 13 matches on this card. Seriously? You guys complain out there. I hear you out there in the IWC complain about 7, 8 matches being on a card. 13!
3 hours and 11 minutes for 13 matches, by the way.
Yes, oh my God, and having to hear that commentary, which I'm just going to give it now, because that's getting my 2-finger salute. along with Mr. Jack Brickhouse. Both of these guys just killed me. They didn't need a microphone in front of them to save their lives. I felt like I was going to get a eulogy listening to Mr. Brickhouse over there talk about everything involved in our next match. Both of them sucked. They get my 2-finger salutes.
And Captain Obvious was based upon Larry Nelson. If you go and watch this, by the way, it is not on the cock. You have to watch this on YouTube.
That's how much we care about you guys, because we want you to know about this stuff.
And this was not this. There was a thing at the top of WWE 24/7. For those of you that remember that thing. Well, this was somebody recording it from WWE 24/7, because there's a couple times that you could tell that the signal broke out, and then there's one time it flashed onto his screen, like if you were on your cable channel and you had a menu. What if there was one time that appeared during our reviewing of this?
Yeah, let's move into this one here.
So yeah, Captain Obvious was built from Larry Nelson. I know I don't want to belabor that anymore, because while the Jack Brickhouse was awful and he really didn't know when to stop talking, this was a good match.
Yeah, it was. Greg Gagne, Scott Hall. 1980 Scott Hall with the mustache and poofy hair. Kurt Hennig on one team, taking on Ray Stevens, Nick Bockwinkel, and Larry Zbyszko.
Yeah, the only sad part about this, Nick Bockwinkel and Ray Stevens were managed for years by a guy named Bobby Heenan. I'm sure you all know who he is. He's already made his way to the WWF, so we don't get to see Bobby Heenan here with Nick Bockwinkel and Ray Stevens.
Yep.
We get Larry Zbyszko. That's not a slam on Larry Zbyszko. Larry Zbyszko is a talented wrestler who deserved world title status and does deserve to be in the Hall of Fame. I just was not a big fan of his one-dimensional style of everything is slow, slower, slowest. So, with that being said, again, this is Rambo Greg Gagne, by the way. This is with Sergeant Slaughter, who has put together a team in the AWA called Slaughter's Marauders. Well, the other three guys faded out, and the only one that survived was Rambo Greg Gagne. And he showed up regaled with his belly shirt, his camouflage belly shirt, his bandana, camouflage bandana, and his skin-tight spray-on pants, because his legs were no bigger, about this big around.
If your dad wasn't the owner of the promotion, I don't think he would have been in this position.
Yes, we've talked about it before. You know your business, Greg Gagne, when it comes to behind the camera. You've been working for the World Wrestling Federation, World Wrestling Entertainment for over 25 years. You know the stuff that goes here, but you should have known, if you have that much knowledge, you should have known you didn't belong in front of the curtain, except maybe as a referee.
Definitely, but it was a great match. It was great to see Kurt Hennig out there. You know, young Kurt Hennig and young Scott Hall, who later formed a tag team in the AWA.
Yes, Scott Hall and Kurt Hennig were AWA World Tag Team Champions in the AWA. And he was still wearing his Starship Coyote vest, because Dan Spivey and Scott Hall started out as a tag team called the American Starship. Coyote and Eagle, and Scott Hall was Coyote. So it's a really big shock for those of you who've never seen Scott Hall AWA. You're going to be like, no, that's not him. He's got the 80s porn mustache. He's got the mullet. And then you hear him talk and you go, that's Scott Hall!
Yeah, and you could tell he was green because he was thanking everyone and not taking any credit.
Everybody. Kurt Hennig doing his great stuff. 2 years later, he gets his AWA World Title run. Bockwinkel did a great job. Stevens did a great job. A great psychology match. I did go 3.5.
Yeah, I went 3.25, pretty much right there with you. I mean, it was a great match to watch. It was a great hype match leading into our next match here. The Road Warriors taking on the Freebirds for the AWA Tag Team titles.
Yes, and Precious Paul Ellering had joined them.
Yes.
So
they even walked by the interviewer. Sorry, Mr. Nelson, we're not talking to you today.
Yes, and this was those sloppy, the Freebirds were not the greatest workers. I mean, Terry Gordy tried to work a Japanese style that he was known for that a lot of other people had trouble with. Michael Hayes, the less we say about his wrestling skill, the better. And the Road Warriors were only a couple of years in the business at this time, so there was a little sloppiness going on in here, but it was a really good tag match. I really enjoyed it. The crowd really loved this thing. I wanted to go higher than 3 stars, but the Dusty finish at the end, I can only give it 3 stars.
Yeah, I went 3.5 just because I love that Dusty finish. I love the fact that he came out there and they reversed the decision and the crowd popped. You can't have the Road Warriors lose in Chicago.
It was the way it was done. So I don't know if that was some of what got put on the network. It basically was, we saw the pin, the foreign object. Vern Gagne came down and said, hey, can we get the guy to show it up here again? They showed Michael Hayes hitting him with the foreign object. They cut away for a couple of seconds. All of a sudden, the Road Warriors, whom we didn't see go back to the ring, are walking away with their belts. That's what I meant by we didn't get to see all of the transpiration of the Dusty finish.
I mean, I get that. WWE would not have done that. WWF wouldn't have done that. NWA wouldn't have done that. Wouldn't have done the instant replay. But of course,
it's Vern.
It's Vern. So we're going to move on here. We had the Russian team of Khrushchev, Ivan Koloff, and Nikita Koloff taking on the Crusher, Dick the Bruiser, and Baron Von Raschke.
Yeah, and Larry Lazowski returns to this show, who is Crusher Lazowski's dad, but he didn't referee this match.
No, he did not.
This was for the NWA World 6-Man Tag Team Championship. Ivan, Nikita, and Crusher Khrushchev. By the way, Crusher Khrushchev, well, we're getting to him. By the way, Crusher Khrushchev became known as Demolition Smash. Taking on Baron Von Raschke, that's the claw he's referring to, Crusher Lazowski, and Dick the Bruiser. While this match was decent, it was a nostalgia match. It was a foreign match. I really felt more like this was Vern Gagne giving his friends a payday. Dick the Bruiser and Crusher Lazowski were wrestlers from the 50s. Again, this is 1985.
It sounds familiar like today's wrestling. Give your friends a payday.
Yeah.
AEW.
Yeah, this is really, that's what it felt like. It was decent. Nikita was still green, very green. Crusher Lazowski was still pretty good, in pretty good shape. Dick the Bruiser looked wore out and old, and his stuff looked horrible. But I did go 2.5.
Yeah, I mean, I'm right with you. I went there 2.5. It was good to see, the Russian team, because, God, they were big in the 80s. Talking about Ivan Koloff, Crusher Khrushchev, and Nikita. All 3 of them went on to win championships even after that.
Yeah. It was a great team, and we enjoyed it. We've put over that we think Ivan Koloff belongs to the WWE Hall of Fame. I think even this Russian team, to go in as a team, if they're putting teams in like the NWO, DX, the Russians deserve to be there too.
Yes. Moving along here, Sergeant Slaughter taking on Boris Zukov for AWA's American Championship.
That's right. This right here, this is one of the things I pointed out, that with the exception of Hulk Hogan, Sergeant Slaughter was probably the biggest star in the 1980s. And I'm going to say it for 2 reasons. He was on G.I. Joe, drawn in, and he had action figures that weren't made by WWF products.
Thank God. LJN, you suck, by the way.
Sergeant Slaughter was a big deal. This is the time he was actually on G.I. Joe. If you ever get a hold of the video package of the 5 years of the G.I. Joe cartoon, the original one in the 80s, Sergeant Slaughter's on there. He was a big deal, folks. Taking on Boris Zukov, who did come over to the WWF for a little while as part of the Bolsheviks. Even here they were making fun of the size of his head. But it was a really good match. Slaughter put on some color. He really put over the G.I. Joe. Sergeant Slaughter retained by DQ. And a good 3-star match.
Yeah, he did a good color job as well on there. I'm with you, 3 stars. I felt like this is a great setting of the table. These last matches, if you could endure the commentary and endure the first half of the show, I felt like you were getting more excited and got your money's worth.
I agree with that. It's a very good statement.
Yeah. Next match here, Jerry Blackwell taking on Kamala in a body slam challenge. We had one about 6 months ago with Andre and John Studd. So let's do it again with 2 smaller guys.
Well, Blackwell's bigger than John Studd as far as weight.
True, but height.
But instead of the $10,000 in various denominations inside a bag, we got a check for $10,000.
Yeah, probably balanced.
Well, General Adnan took off with it. It's probably a gimmick anyway.
Yeah, of course it is.
But Kamala and Jerry Blackwell, this match, I'm probably going to take some heat for this. I don't care. I think this was a better body slam match than WrestleMania 1.
Whoa.
Because while Andre the Giant and Big John Studd were bigger men, they were not as mobile of men. And they were not known for their creativeness when it came to this match. Both of them said they hated this match. I think Jerry Blackwell and Kamala loved this match, so they put more into it. I gave it 2.5 stars. It really wasn't bad at all. And then we did have the parade of jobbers. 2 or 3 jobbers came down afterwards. General Adnan has stolen the check and is hitting Jerry Blackwell with the sword. And then we got the parade of jobbers that come down. And then finally Baron Von Raschke comes down with a baseball bat. Like I said, it was 2.5 stars. I think it was better than the Body Slam Challenge from Mania 1.
I won't say it's better than that Body Slam Challenge, but I will say it was pretty good. The big problem I have with this was Jerry Blackwell selling. Good God. If you watch this on camera, he'd get punched, and I swear I was watching Chuck Norris taking a board to the back. He just did not have any facial expression at all.
Watch Dusty Rhodes from the Great American Bash '84. Same selling style. His idea of selling was my skin will move for me.
So I'll go with you on a 2.5, only because Baron Von Raschke came out there with that baseball bat. I did love that. That was definitely one of the highlights of that match there. But moving along here, AWA Heavyweight Championship. No, this is not the main event. They decided not to make this the main event. Rick Martel taking on Stan Hansen.
Alrighty. So, Stan Hansen, who does defeat Rick Martel to win the title later on. It doesn't happen at this show. This match, well, the fight was very good. This match never got started. It was a double DQ, but the 2.5 star for the fight itself. They really did a good job of these guys. Need to settle it. Need to finally put an end to this program.
Yes.
However, AWA was the head promoter on this. Wally Carbo was the only promoter at this show. Wally Carbo was in charge of booking the AWA, and he makes the AWA title not the main event. So I'm not going to punish the bookers. I'm not going to punish the workers. Editor, I hope you can find a picture of Wally Carbo. Because I'm spraying Wally Carbo. The 2 reasons AWA failed in 1991, their names are Vern Gagne and Wally Carbo. If you have so little respect for your own champion that not only do you put them in the semi-main, which is a popcorn match, you have no match for them. Although the fight was good, you didn't need to build it up on his pay-per-view.
Yeah, this belongs somewhere else.
And the next match, which is the main event, Larry Nelson kept calling Ric Flair the heavyweight champion of the world, but only referred to Rick Martel as the AWA champion.
Yeah.
So, Wally Carbo, you got what you deserved.
Yeah, I mean, I have an incomplete for this. I'm not even giving this a rating because this really wasn't a match. It was a great fight, and it was nice to watch for 2.5 minutes, but, dude, there's no reason to rate it.
I rated the fight because for a character building and a drama building blow-off schmoz, this was very, very good. It was very intense. They fought all over the place, and the crowd was into it. The bull rope around Rick Martel's neck, and he fights his way out of it, and the crowd gets hotter. That's why it deserved a rating.
Yeah, definitely. I mean, I just.
But you're right. It really was incomplete.
I was disappointed in it, honestly. I was hoping for a great match to be able to see there. But now we're going to move on to the main event. We're going to talk about Ric Flair, NWA Heavyweight Champion of the World, taking on Magnum TA.
That's right. And Magnum TA never won a world title. Yes, we're giving it away. Rick, he didn't win it here. But this was a really great match. This would have been a couple of months before Starrcade 85, which was the Magnum TA Tully Blanchard I Quit match in the cage. This was like 2 months before that. This match was really, really good. It's a very, very typical Ric Flair style match. There was a little bit of dragging in the middle when Flair spent a little bit too long working on the arm. It kind of bogged down a little bit. But after that, it came out good. They had a short ref bump that the ref got tumbled when Magnum TA hit the belly-to-belly. But unlike WWF referees, AWA referees, as we've said before, are really, really tough. He was only out of there for like 4 seconds. Then he came over and he made the 2 count. So, good job, Larry Lazowski. You're tougher than most WWF referees.
Yeah, I mean, this match, it lived up to its hype. It was a great match itself, a great fight. Ric Flair coming out there in the green trunks. I never liked that. I never liked the green and yellow. I just, for some reason, didn't work out for me.
Well, it was green and white, but you're right. The green, didn't work for him very well. He's had better colors. He's had worse colors.
Yeah, I mean, I love the part where Magnum TA slapped on the figure 4 on Ric Flair there. I love that. I was thinking, man, he might actually win this. Of course I knew he wasn't because history, but overall the match was awesome. I gave it 3.5 stars.
I did. Mine was 3.5, and Flair put on some color, which, gee, shock, Ric Flair put on color. But he put it on towards the end when it made sense. That's another thing for you indie guys. You don't have to bleed 2 seconds into a match. You can bleed in the last 2 minutes. There's nothing wrong with that. You just try. Your goal is to figure out when does it make the most sense.
Oh God!
That's not the appropriate time.
Blood everywhere. Good God. Yeah, so basically, I mean, overall, it was a decent show. It's a good learning tool, especially if you're a fan here. Because like I said, history repeats itself if you watch today. Because notice, a lot of stars are going from one show to the other, WWE, AEW. Kind of like they did with the AWA, NWA, and WWF.
Yes. Long before contracts, back when it was standard deals of you show up for a couple of months, they send you a booking sheet, and you sign the booking sheet, and that's the only time you had to appear. They don't do that anymore. Now it's contracts and, guaranteed money and all this stuff. I kind of would like that to go away. I know it never will because the wrestlers do have to make a living. But at the same time, guaranteed contracts, we get what we get today.
Pretty much. We're going to move on here to Superclash 3 here. And there's many significance behind this show.
4.
No, we're going to move on to 3.
We're going to 3?
We're going to do 3.
I thought we were supposed to do 4, the last one.
We will do 4, but we're going to do 3.
Okay.
And there's many reasons why I want to do 3.
I guess that explains why that run sheet's tore up.
Exactly.
You didn't want me to know what was coming.
I didn't. Yeah. So Superclash 3 will
see what I have to put up with here, folks.
Always got to throw a wrench into something, don't I? Yes, Superclash 3, we will be talking about that on the next episode. If you can, like, share, subscribe to this channel, and tell us what you think about the AWA. I'm your host, Dr. Quack.
And I'm the important one, Mr. Mayhem, saying thanks for joining us. Remember, cross-branding, cross-promoting. Go to Randy Hogan's stuff on Facebook. Join the Randomania Revolution.
And we're out.